Bismillah, alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum, greens of peace. My next guest grew up in a Catholic family. Father was kind of agnostic, ended up doing the new age thing, consciousness, meditation, third eye, astrology, crystals, kind of like this.
With this and like put it under your pillow
Uh-huh.
because it almost like helps you come into like a spiritual awakening.
Okay.
So that's really cool. And it just gives off really good energy. This apparently has interaction with like your third eye.
Okay.
I don't know if you know about that, some spiritual stuff.
And then he met a Christian woman, started going deeper into Christianity after he got baptized, but he started having more questions than answers. He wanted something clear, precise, without contradiction. He wasn't getting it. He became an agnostic, but he was still doing some good things. He was pushing the no-fap, helping people with addictions or dealing with addictions, became a YouTube star. And let's see where he's at in life today with Enrio, my special guest. Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, habibi. What a opening, man.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. How you doing, brother?
Alhamdulillah, bro. Alhamdulillah. How are
Did you get your cold shower in today?
Nah, I haven't yet. But after this, inshallah.
You still doing the cold showers?
Every now and then, periodically. Now that you say that, I'm gonna have to hop back on them every single day.
All right, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So tell us, let's start off. People can see your story in detail. You have it out there. It's on your channel. I want to kind of touch upon it, but I want to go into this. Let's tell us what's this, because this is kind of like a growing movement. Let's watch this again, and you can give us some details when you talk about the third eye, these crystals, spirituality.
Sleep with this and like put it under your pillow
Uh-huh.
because it almost like helps you come into like a spiritual awakening.
Okay.
So that's really cool. And it just gives off really good energy. This apparently has interaction with like your third eye.
Okay.
I don't know if you know about that, some spiritual stuff.
What the is that? Third eye? What's going on? It's like the Dajjal. What are they talking about?
Yeah, it's a lot. So the whole New Age stuff has its roots in Hinduism. A lot of people don't realize that, but it has its roots in Hinduism. And in Hinduism, you have these things known as the chakras, and the third eye is the second to final chakra before the crown chakra. It's pretty ridiculous, and I don't want to like throw dirt on them. Like we're even told not to speak badly over another person's religion or something like that. But when you start getting into this stuff, you start to see how kind of twisted it all is, how altered it all is.
And then you have this kind of, what's this like? So getting into meditation, no problem. I mean, we can contrast that with like, Islam. We try to meditate, really getting into salat, connecting with the one creator, right? Being grateful for all the blessings, etc. So when you talk about meditation, what kind of meditation are you talking about at that time that you're doing? What does it entail? And this consciousness, I think consciousness, you think about taqwa, consciousness of your creator.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
That's what it should be.
What did it translate for you then?
Then the whole consciousness aspect was more so like, they said you open up your pineal gland, and when you open up your pineal gland, it's like you're opening yourself up to a different dimension. Keep this in mind, a different dimension. Now, people do all these different techniques to go into this different dimension. This different dimension, they call it the astral realm. I think you probably refer to it as like maybe the fifth dimension or something like that. But when you go into this place and when you experience this, like you kind of open yourself up to things where some might be good, but they are going to be bad as well. And after coming to this you kind of start to realize, okay, these things that I was experiencing then, this state and all this stuff, like this is jinns. This is jinns. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, but it's jinns that you open yourself up to.
What's jinns?
When you do these techniques to open up your third eye, you actually open yourself up to jinns.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people actually take this.
When you do what? When you do this third eye stuff?
Yeah. So they have like transcendental meditation. They have this one yoga called Shambhavi Mahamudra. They have astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
certain practices. They have even drugs like DMT. You can literally smoke the DMT in and of itself. And what these things do is it takes you somewhere else. It makes you experience more than what you are experiencing here. And the things that you experience wherever you go, listen, like after coming to Islam, I know that that's jinns. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Because you've experienced it, you know what it entails. So
Unfortunately,
you have some Muslims naively like jumping into this kind of stuff and experimenting, but this is clear. So you, from your experience, from what you're entering into this unseen realm of the evil spirit, the jinns.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
deep. What about these crystals? We hear about these crystals.
See, I never really like understood the crystals too much because if you look at quartz crystal, they use that in watches,
Yeah.
and it's I think it's called piezoelectric or piezoelectric. I might be butchering that term, but the crystal in and of itself is capable of conducing electricity, so they use it in the watch, therefore to basically power the watch. Now, as far as like, okay, us theorizing that like, okay, well, if this crystal can do that, then that means it can do all these other things, and each crystal has its own little property. That's kind of questionable. And when I was getting into it, you know, I didn't really fully accept the whole crystals, like, oh, this crystal makes you more clear cognitively and stuff like that. But there was one crystal in particular that was, I think it was called I gotta get back to you on the name, but it was like a greenish type stone crystal, and I never understood why. But anytime that I would keep this stone like next to me, I would start feeling really out of it. Like my mind would just be all foggy, and like I couldn't think properly. And I know this is true because every time that I had that next to me, same experience every single time.
Jinns again.
Perhaps
You get into
perhaps.
experiment and stuff. This is all stuff Shaitan is like having the tools that he's using to like mislead people and get you distracted over here when you should be directing all your attention to the one who created you. It's crazy.
100%.
SubhanAllah. Yeah. So let's go back to the other one. So there's a lot of drugs involved in opening up with the subconscious. We've seen like some people going to Mexico, some celebrities,
Yeah,
and then there's this special drug that they get from the lizard.
peyote. Oh wait,
Peyote.
no. If it's from the lizard,
Yeah, I don't know. It's some animal. It can be something else.
if it's an animal, I think it's called toad.
Toad. That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah,
Toad.
yeah. It's the same. It's I think they refer to it as MAOI.
So what? The same thing takes you into that different realm. What is that?
Yeah. You could call it like a psychedelic.
Psychedelic.
You could call it like a psychedelic, but the realm that you're entering is not hallucinogenic. Like there's something more happening there because like the things that people experience is very similar. You know, and then like you encounter different beings, different entities there, and like these people that are doing these things, they don't know what it is, so they're doing it, and then they're thinking, oh, I'm encountering this being, this entity, and this entity's helping me and all that stuff. But like, little do you know that this right here is a jinn, because there's been many reports where people go into these states, right? And then they start to interact with these entities, and these entities, they come off at first, they come off nice, they come off non-threatening, like helping them. And then like after they've been with this entity for X amount of time, like then they do a switch up and the entity turns into just this evil thing that's completely out to ruin this person's experience at that time. So yeah, it's crazy.
You got a lot of experience. I mean, most people like who tasted all this stuff, and then you come to what we'll talk about later, the way of life you're upon now. It's like night and day, huh? What about astrology now? Also,
I never dipped too far into that, but I have had experiences where I talk to people who are quote unquote, I guess you could say astrologers. No, not astrologers. They don't even refer to themselves as that. The tarot card readers who use astrology, and then they use all this stuff to be able to like tell people's fortunes and all this stuff. And some of the things I saw were pretty scary how accurate they were. But again, coming to Islam, you start to understand like how it all works, how the jinn are
Back
just
to wow, yeah,
yeah.
back to the jinn, right?
Mhm.
You know the hadith that talks about, you know, about the jinn, just paraphrasing it, and then they'll end up getting some information, and there'll be one truth mixed with 99 lies, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, it
Yeah.
reminds me of when people bring up like Nostradamus,
Hmm.
and then he'll like kind of have some vague statements that he made, and people cling to that, but then they forget about like all the hundreds of things that he guessed that are just wrong, you know, blatantly wrong,
Hmm.
and then something that possibly can fit. But you have like these people you're talking about who hook up with the unseen world of the jinn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Islam has those answers. It tells you there's that unseen world, and so a lot of these things you can pinpoint back to the jinn.
Yeah.
It's
Always.
crazy. It's
Always.
crazy.
The more you get into it, or the more you get into Islam, like the more everything else makes sense.
Mhm.
You know, because it's like everything else only has like, in my understanding from when I was studying different, you know, religions, different experiences and stuff like that, is that it's they all have like little pieces of the puzzle, but when you get into Islam, like there's all the pieces are there.
Mhm.
So again, like the more you get into Islam, the more you understand.
Then you went and you almost got married, right? You were engaged to a Christian
Yeah,
woman. You went real deep then, and you
yeah.
took a deep dive. You got baptized. What happened from there?
So I tried getting into the whole Christianity thing. It it had its points, you know, like there was definitely that community type vibe whenever you would go to the churches, but don't ask any questions. God forbid you ask any questions. That would ruin the whole community type vibe. What else? I tried to vibe with the notion that Jesus was God, but it never sat well. And like anytime I would even have that thought like run across my mind, I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't connect. Like there's something wrong here. So, and that just kind of led me, like after her and I split, it led me to just kind of straying away from the whole Christianity concept because it's again, it doesn't make sense, and then you can't ask questions because God forbid it, you know.
Did you ever go back to her? Does she know that you ended up accepting Islam? Did you ever go talk to her again? And what was her reaction?
I
Your
have
former,
no idea. I have no
you
idea.
guys lost touch.
Yeah, we lost touch. I think the last time we talked was definitely probably like 7 or 8 months before I became Muslim. So I don't know if she knows. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't.
Hmm.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Mhm.
So you make an example. It's like IKEA. You know, when if you get something, an instruction manual, you want it to be clear and precise. And it seems like with all these other ways that were out there, you weren't getting what was clear and precise. You were getting all these things left on interpretation.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was I think with everything that I was getting into, and there was never a clear like, okay, this is it. This is what you do. This is how you do it. Here, you have questions. Go ahead, ask your questions, but all the answers are here for you. I never had that. And then again, like when I came onto Islam, before I even saw those answers, it all clicked for me. So subhanAllah, it's like Allah was just kind of like confirming, like, hey, before you even have any questions, let me let you know that this is the truth. So that way you can already be primed and ready for this.
I think you'd make a good candidate to be on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Inshallah, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think you got a lot, I got a lot in common. I think most of the things that, some of the things he talks about, you guys actually had him. You guys, you and the brothers that you were commenting on one of his programs. It seemed like he did kind of a turn where he was talk, since we're mentioning the word Islam, he started mentioning the word Islam and he was talking about it in a positive light. Let's go into this next video where you and the brothers, the three Muslims, you're actually kind of, talking about one of his programs.
Islam originally was they were scientists, man. I mean, if you look at the early Islamic world, they were the ones that were the most advanced at one point in history. They were the ones that were pushing mathematics and science and reason and logic. It's just, it comes in cycles, man. It comes in cycles of suppression and dominance. And, the real concern is unstoppable dictatorships like China and Russia. And when there's no dissent and no discussion.
I've got a lot of friends who are Arabs. I spent a lot of time in the Middle East. I love them. They're awesome. There are some.
That's deep, huh? I love them. They're awesome. It takes like that was one of the misconceptions you had when he said Arab. You thought all Muslims were Arabs. Is that right? Yeah. So what were you guys discussing there? It was fascinating to see Joe, because we've done some programs before where he kind of like got out of his lane, and we respectfully, kindly, academically, we brought on some scholars. We addressed the issues that he was talking about, because he had some guests that were spewing this hate rhetoric, misinformation. And then we academically cleared it up, and it's just nice to see him actually talking about Islam in this video in a positive light. What was your guys' conclusion at the end? What were some of the things that you guys discussed in that video?
If I remember 100%, but I think he was, I think the thing that he was referring to was that maybe Islam has the answers. Or maybe I'm getting it wrong here.
That's deep. I think the title was "Is Joe Rogan secretly a Muslim?"
Yeah. So okay, then I'm not wrong. Yeah, I'm not wrong. He was saying that like maybe Islam has the answers. Maybe the Muslims have the answers here. That's like the whole gist of like what we were trying to get at, what he was trying to get at. Yeah. So yeah.
Because he takes to a kind of person that you would think he does a lot of those psychedelics, right? The marijuana. He does a lot of the different drugs. He's open to experimenting, right? So why not experiment with Islam? You've experimented with everything else.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's the next step for him.
Right?
Yeah. I think anyone, my bad for cutting off, but anyone who does psychedelics, like the next step for them is Islam. Because once you've had these experiences, like I myself, astaghfirullah, that I had these experiences in my jahiliyyah, but I feel like when I came to Islam, those experiences were just kind of cemented, and Allah just kind of made it like, okay, look, those experiences you had, this is why that happened. This is why there was this. This is why you ran into this. This is why this, and this. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for anyone who has done psychedelics, like Islam is the next step.
What would you tell Joe Rogan? What would you, if you had a chance? What would you say to Joe, our friend Joe?
I don't think I'm the best person to speak to him. I think probably Muhammad Hijab might be the best person to speak to him.
Why not? I mean, you have a lot in common. I mean, a lot of the things I'm sure that he's been through, a lot of the things, you're a person that strikes me as someone, if something is good, you're open, you're quick to make your discipline, willpower, you help people, with any of these addictions and whatnot. You got a lot of positive character traits, alhamdulillah. And, we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Joe Rogan also, he talks about some good things also. And I think that you would have a lot of things in common. It'd be a good conversation. Mm-hmm. So now if you had that conversation, if it happened, you say, hey, Joe, what's up? What would you tell him? Hey, Joe.
First off, I'd tell him, like, what does he think about Islam? And see what his thoughts are, like, see where he's at in that journey. And then from there, I'd invite him, not to, 100% accept Islam from the rip, but I'd invite him to take on a dopamine detox, kind of strip everything away, and then try out the Ramadan fasting for a few days.
Now we're talking. There you go.
Yeah. So in the Ramadan fasting, you understand.
Okay, we're giving Joe Rogan now. You're giving him as sincere advice as one human to another. Dopamine detox. You are doing these. What's a dopamine detox?
It's very simple. You strip everything away. You make life as simple as possible, the way that the Creator intended. Right. So just spend time in nature. Spend time with the people that you love. and just spend less, if zero, time on electronics.
Yeah.
So no entertainment, no books even, I'd say, in that little specific time, right? So if he's gonna do that, I'd say try this out, man. Like 3-4 days, strip everything away. And then also from sunrise to sunset, don't drink any water, don't eat any food, and just spend time outside, spend time meditation, spend time self-reflecting.
He does. He goes hunting.
Yeah. So I'm sure he's had like very close states to what I'm referring to. Maybe not in the dry fasted state. That's the big changer here. Is if he were to add the dopamine detox into a dry fasted state, which is the whole Ramadan fasting type deal. And I feel like from there, like he would probably start to, connect the dots, inshallah.
And then you can talk to him about, look, that experience, your experience before, and then you talk about these waves. Look, these waves. We know that, look, Islam is based on proof, evidence, right? For the person who wants scientific proof, he wants to look at the Quran unchanged, tamper-free, tamper-proof. If he wants to look at all of the things, the prophecies, there's no way that this human being, that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, could have came up with all these things. But then you have your personal experiences also, that I'm sure someone, he'd be like, man, I want to feel that. We know that people, unless they're really truly connected with their creator, there's always that void. There's that void, and then talk about these waves, that we're going, this feeling now, once you start to come to, you said you read the Quran 3 times. Was that right?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Alhamdulillah.
And these waves, what are you talking about, these waves?
So the waves happened the first time. The waves happened the third day of reading the Quran. Each time I would read the Quran, I would, kind of sit and reflect in like a meditation afterwards. And the third day of reading the Quran, I wasn't Muslim at the time, but everything just kind of clicked. And when everything clicked, it's like something inside me was like, yeah, I guess Allah is the only God. I guess the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the final messenger. And like when all that clicked, it clicked, and my mind just kind of went blank for a second, like all these waves just started going in and out of my body. Like, very difficult to explain, but that's the best explanation I have for it. And when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely a Muslim.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So you were dealing with, like what most people, you were dealing with, would you say classify it like a deep depression? What had you, because you went through so many different phases in life. If you go back, Catholic family, father agnostic, and then you have the going deep into Christianity. Before that, all of these different, the New Age movement, and then kind of back to what your father was upon, agnosticism, until finally you kind of left Islam towards the end? Why was that? You had these preconceived notions also that Islam was oppressive and whatnot. Why was it left at the end?
Yeah, so first off, I'd like to think that I don't have deep depression. I guess everyone would like to think that they don't have any psychological issues or any trauma or anything like that. But I've been through a rough life, man. And I noticed that anytime that I would get like by myself and I would kind of strip everything away and I didn't have any distractions and none of the sort, it would always lead to being in that depressive state. And I've said it multiple times, so I'm not ashamed of saying it. I was abused. I was abused throughout my childhood. My parents were divorced early on, and the list goes on and on and on. So it's like, I guess I do struggle with some deep depression. And aside from that, why did I leave Islam to the end? I think I left Islam towards the end because the people that I had met who were Muslim, their character showed so much, I guess, hope, you could say, because when you see a Muslim who's like really on deen, like, this, like, you could feel this. You don't have to be Muslim in order to experience someone else's character. right? And the people who I had run into who were Muslim, who had that taqwa, who had that character, that akhlaq, and the manners and all that, man, I was just like, yo, like kind of like how Joe Rogan's saying, like, maybe Islam is it, but for some reason, you know how like I don't know, I just didn't. It was kind of like a resistance internally, I guess you could say.
Would that be the resistance to like, okay, what she's going to say, my parents, what society? You think what you falling into that category? Because that happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd say two categories. That category that you just said, because there's the negative stigma over here in the West. You got Islam being portrayed as a terrorist religion, and yeah, it's just nothing but bad connotation, bad things that are associated with it here in the West, at least. And the other side is like people want to know the truth, but people are afraid of knowing the truth because once you know the truth, like you can't go back. Like you're in a state of ignorance. Once you take the red pill, you can't go back to sleep. You can't go back into the dream. You know what I'm saying? So it's like once you realize Islam is the truth, good luck going back.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
You said a word also that we'll touch upon. Hopefully, I won't forget. Red pill. You mentioned when you take the red pill. That's from the Matrix, right? That movie, The Matrix, and then they're offered the blue and the red. And then what does that signify? That red pill. When he took the red pill, was it Keanu Reeves? What does that signify when he took the red pill?
When he took the red pill in the movie, he was waking up from the Matrix, and the Matrix was this false programming, this false reality. So it's like what he was living and what everyone else was living, it was all fake. It was all like this program that was just being run on and run on. But when you took the red pill, you step out of that program and then you start to see like what life really was. And that's kind of like what happens when you get into Islam.
Did you become a PUA at one point?
That's the guys that go around hitting on girls, right?
Is it PUA, pickup artist?
Yeah, pickup artist. Yeah, I unfortunately, yeah, I did. I did at one point.
I mean, that's before Islam. Everything is like a go, right? It's just like, if you're in that world of like, there's nothing to measure your morality by, why not? Like, where would you be without Islam? Why should you not do such and such and such, right?
Yeah, it's like that verse goes like, do you not see the one who takes his desires as his Lord? And that's exactly what it is.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, subhanallah. And
this is what men, I mean, it's in the Quran. Zuyyina linnasi hubbu shahawati minan nisa. It's like the one thing that men desire the most is Allah is telling us it's in the Quran. So now if you don't have no perimeters, you don't have no guidelines, no rules to live by, then you become a pickup artist. And if you have the ability, it's crazy, huh? Because that's a lot of times associated with this red pill, right? Yeah, we'll get into that later. Let's go back to this depression now. I want to make this clear because it's not just because, okay, now, because in the beginning you accept Islam, and it's kind of like, the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, last and final messenger, talks about like when someone enters Islam, submission to the will of the Creator, not the creation, is like he's like a newborn baby. All his sins just, are wiped away. And you have that feeling like that. Did you experience that feeling in the beginning? Like,
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about? You're just like on cloud nine. You're feeling just amazing.
Yeah. I definitely.
There's no such thing as a cloud nine, but I'm just like, the metaphorically.
100%. Yeah. I felt it, and I'd say like I still feel it, but I'd say now that I'm like closing in on a year, maybe a little bit more. Actually, no, we still haven't hit a year yet. Me being Muslim, alhamdulillah. But as I'm closing in on this year, it's like I'm kind of still seeing like, okay, I still did what I did. Allah forgave me for it. Allah put like a blanket over it. But I'm still like, I still did it. Nonetheless, like I still had that experience. And the sad part is like a mind stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions. So it's like I've already done those things. There's no way that I can just eliminate that from my life, from my mind. So it's still there. So yeah, I still feel like that cloud nine type feeling, but then it's like I'm still remembered like, yeah, I still did that. So I'd say it humbles me, and instead of me being on cloud nine, it's more like, okay, I'm just kind of like sober. I'm sober.
Yeah. So a couple points. One thing is obviously we're not proud of our past, and we don't want to go into any of the details, but it just kind of because people are chasing that lifestyle. So now you can say, hold on. I went that way. You don't want to go that direction. I was there. I did all those things that you're doing now, and you're going to hit a dead end. I hit the dead end. Why are you going to go hit a dead end, or the bridge is out and you're going to fall down the mountain? Why are you going to do that? I've been there. You don't have to do it. You can experience it through my lens, my life. I mean, so that's the thing that we try to get out. Like people who've been there and done that, look at their lives now. Look how unhappy they were, and look where they're at now. And the other point was about the depression. I don't want people to think like, you find the purpose of life. Obviously, now you have that contentment, that peace, and tranquility. But you can't fall into. All of us do, myself included. We all fall into those times of struggles, and you can get depressed, right? But you have the tools to get you out of that. You have dhikr, right? You have Allah. It's like a beautiful example is like you're on the ocean, the not yet Muslim, non-Muslim, the Muslim, they're going to both, let's say, be on the ocean, and then those waves are hitting, the turbulence is hitting, whatever. One has Allah, one doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end, now you have the tools, you get through it, inshallah, and you're stronger. So have you seen that? How was that when you would hit certain times in your life and you didn't have these tools that you're learning about, you're getting more and more grounded in the deen? How is that helping you to navigate through life as opposed through before when it was the new age stuff and all these other things that were at your disposal?
Yeah, so it's like you said, bro. It's like you said, where it's like now you have this guidebook. Now you have these guidelines. Now you know what to do. So it doesn't mean that you are exempt. It doesn't mean that you will never feel depressed or you'll never experience hardship. It's just now you know what to do when you experience the hardship versus before. I wasn't Muslim, when I didn't have the guidelines, when I didn't have the guidebook. I didn't know what I was doing. So anytime I would be feeling like life is amazing, I would become very arrogant. I would become very boastful and be like, like it's because of me. Like I'm the one doing this here, right? And then Allah is like, okay, say less. Like you think this is all this? You think this is all you? Let's see. And then he strips it away. And then when he strips it all away, like the suffering that I'll go through because I didn't have any guidelines, I didn't know what to do. So I'm over here trying to do the best that I can to get past it. So for someone who's not on deen, that might look like them maybe partaking in drugs more, maybe drinking alcohol more, maybe spending way too much time with other people. Maybe they are playing video games, maybe they're watching pornography, maybe they're doing something to kind of drown themselves out from that depression that they're experiencing. But people realize at some point or another, the only way out is through. Like if you want to get through depression, if you want to get out of depression, you have to go through it, right? If you are angry, how do you stop being angry? You have to go through it. You have to let it run its course. If you, let's say you hurt yourself and you have to heal up, like, okay, how do you heal up? It doesn't happen like that. You have to go through it. So with all these things, like you're going to have to go through it. So why not have something that's like, here, do this, do that, live in this style, think in this way. This is going to allow you to get past what you're feeling here in the most easiest way possible. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And this is what you went and you continue to do, helping people deal with different addictions. And you had this video. You can explain what this no fat means. Did you made this before Islam? Let's get into this, and you can kind of give us a breakdown, because this is a big addiction people are dealing with, pornography and all these other addictions.
Fat changed my life. Now, if you don't know what NoFap is, it's basically this movement that was created where people stop playing with themselves and they stop watching pornography. I know, crazy, right? Like, why would anyone want to stop doing these things? But I came across this a few years back, and it's because I realized that I had a problem. I realized that, hey, maybe what I'm doing isn't the best thing.
No
crazy. I
fap.
don't know.
So for people that have never heard of this, no fap. This is something new also to me. No, is it no fap?
No fap.
Yeah. So for the next generation, older generation, many people are not keen to these new terms. Like, what was this message that you were getting out there?
Yeah. So first off, let me just say the shirt that I had on in the video, I think, was by far the most comfortable shirt that I've ever had in my life, subhanAllah. But no fap, to get on topic here, no fap. No fap is basically where you stop masturbating, you stop watching pornography. And for this generation, or at least for the people who are outside of religion, that's a big thing for them. Like, it's free. You can go on a computer, your phone, and you have access to unlimited things that will, quote unquote, fulfill your desire. All right, but that's not the best thing in this world. And the whole NoFap movement, it's basically to eliminate these things so that your body can kind of go back to its normal state. You see, because if someone watches pornography, what ends up happening is that it's releasing an excessive amount of dopamine into your system. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, kind of like acetylcholine, serotonin, things along that line. All right, there are more for sure. I'm just not recalling them right now. But when you watch pornography, it's releasing this excessive amount of dopamine, and it's excessive because you would never have this in nature. It's not natural for you to be able to be with, let's say, 40, 50, 60 different sexual partners within like, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? It's not possible. Like, it's not something that Allah made for us. Allah didn't create our bodies this way, right? So what ends up happening is that you have this excessive amount of dopamine, and then it basically desensitizes your body to where you become less sensitive to real life. So let's say you walk outside and let's say there's a butterfly that flies across. Like, if you were sensitive, you would look at that butterfly and there would be an impact because you'd be present, you would experience that fully. But when you are desensitized, it's like that butterfly flies across and there's this lag time. There's this period where it's like you didn't really experience it. You're kind of running like 2 to 5 seconds behind the time frame that you should be. So to keep it more simple, if you're desensitized, you're not going to notice a butterfly. If you're sensitized, you go outside and you see that butterfly and you say, Subhanallah. And that's NoFap. That's all it's doing, is just resensitizing your body.
And were you Muslim at the time when you made this?
Nah, I was not Muslim.
Okay, so you're actually pushing this positive message even before Islam.
Yeah.
So this is a movement of not yet Muslims, non-Muslims who started this.
It's non-Muslims for sure. And if you get like deep down to the bone, NoFap is actually a business, unfortunately.
Became a business?
Yeah, but still, like, it's still helping people. So
yeah.
So it is what it is in that sense. But NoFap is meant to help people break free from destructive habits and addictions, but little do they know that when they break free from these things, they actually get closer to the creator. They get more spiritual. Everyone who's been on NoFap will attest to the same thing.
This is deep. So what do you think from your experience dealing and talking with this? I had a guest on, Imam John. He makes the connection. He's lectured, helped a lot of the youth, people who are supposedly coming out and saying, look, they're having doubts about Islam. They're having a faith iman crisis. He connects this crisis, much of it, a great majority of it, to pornography addiction. Because now you made the statement now that you end up getting closer to your creator when you start disconnecting here. Now reverse that, right? You keep doing it. What's the opposite going to happen? You're going to get more distant. Right. So we did a program here, and we actually, you have, I think, is one of the serial killers on there. They were talking about FBI and whatnot. They were talking about, I forgot what the person's name was.
Ted
Was it
Bundy.
one of them? Yeah, was it Bundy? And he talks about how, this violent form of pornography, how this actually aided, them, with their thinking to go ahead and commit a lot of these crimes. What are your thoughts on that?
It's the truth. It's the truth. Because when you watch these things, it's programming you subconsciously. Like I've talked to many people who they say that what they learned in pornography when they're having sex with their woman, it's not the same. And I'm like, well, of course it's not the same. Like, what did you expect? Like, number one, pornography is fake. They are literally acting, and they're recording there are people behind camera that are recording this. And then on top of that, like, everything is done excessively to appeal to people, because what ends up happening is people, when they start watching pornography or they start taking drugs, they have this thing known as the Coolidge effect, meaning that you need more of the said thing in order to experience the same feeling you felt in the beginning. So if someone drinks alcohol, they're going to need more alcohol. They develop a tolerance, right? It's a simple terminology, a tolerance. Someone smokes weed the first time, there will never be another time like the first time. And every time that they smoke weed after that, they're going to try to emulate and have that same experience as the first time, but they will never experience that again, right? So that's the Coolidge effect. Now with pornography, it's the same thing. You watch pornography, the more someone watches pornography, the nastier the stuff they get into, until they're doing something that's completely against what they are. Like they could be a straight heterosexual male, and he could be so far gone into pornography that he's now watching homosexual pornography. But he's not gay himself. But he's watching this because he's literally desensitized himself so much that now he needs that in order for him to get aroused and feel anything. So just think, like, if that's happening with that, like, think about the other stuff that's occurring.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it made sense to me what he was saying. This Imam John, what he was saying was that because of this is leading to a crisis of faith, of Iman, with a lot of people who are in this addiction. So what do you like to tell people who are going through this addiction right now? They're tuning in. Where do you like to start? How do you like to help people? Because this is one of the things you do, right? You help people dealing with these different addictions. So having gone through a lot of these things, what would you tell the person? Like where to start, how to get help?
Well, are we referring to someone who is religious, or are we referring to someone who's secular?
Both.
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 Right. So, well, it's gonna look different for each one, because obviously each one has different beliefs and different desires and stuff like that. But for the non-secular person, I always tell them, like, what does the best version of yourself look like? Like, I'm talking about, like, when you watch a movie and you see like that character that's like the top character, where you're just like, dang, like that's pretty dope. Like he's masculine, he's strong, he's confident, he's stoic, all this stuff that you might attribute to this character. Now look at yourself. Right? Look at yourself as the main character in your own life, in your own movie. Now, what would this character be doing? Would he be watching pornography all the time? Would he be masturbating all the time? The answer is probably not. And that's like that makes a big shift in people who are secular. Now, for people who are religious, it's really like it's all about understanding like what they're doing. Like, number one, do you understand that time is running out? Number two, do you understand that we're not guaranteed the next hour? We're not guaranteed the next minutes. Nothing is guaranteed. The only thing that's guaranteed is that we're going to die, and we're going to be gathered right in front of our Creator, the day of judgment. Right? That's guaranteed. Now, if you are religious, you understand these two things, and then you see what you're doing. Well, now it's a matter of like kind of breaking it down. Okay, why am I going in this path? Why am I doing these things? And a big one could be, oh, well, I don't have a spouse. I'm not married. you know, and I'll catch on to I'll talk on the ones where if they're married, what would they do? But 9 times out of 10, the people who are doing this, they're not going to be married, right? So they're trying to fulfill their sexual urges without actually going out here and having sex with a woman, without performing zina outside of marriage, you know. But I don't know which one's worse, man. I don't know which one's worse, to watch pornography or to actually go out there and perform sin. Now, both of them are terrible, and Allah has already said this. But it's like, in reality, like when you look at like what's happening deep down on a, I guess the neurotransmitter level and all that stuff, like even on the spiritual level, like which one is actually worse? Which one is worse here? And they think that watching pornography is worse when like it's not any better. It's not any better.
Yeah, and some people that's how Shaitan plays that game. He tries to you try to, you know, make justifications, and now you even have it's instead of the VHS tapes, right? You have access all over, but now you can dial up. People end up dialing up, and you got someone live.
Oh yeah, the live shows and all that.
Right.
It's getting disgusting, and it's getting to the point where they're having 3D, the virtual reality stuff. Once it gets like deeper into that, like trust that people are really going to be in a rough point. But getting back to what we were saying about like the guy, if the guy realizes that he's doing it because he's not married, well, then the next question is like, okay, well, what's preventing him from being married? And then starting to do the work necessary in order to become married, so that way you can get over the addiction. Because the thing is with addictions is if we take the word addiction out, it's actually just a pattern of behavior. Now, of course, each pattern of behavior will either lead you to rewards or will lead you to punishment. But if you see it for what it is, then you understand a pattern of behavior can only be changed if you replace it with something else. And a lot of times people replace it with something worse. You know, it's like you don't want to change one poison for another poison. So in this sense, it's like you want to change that pattern of behavior with different patterns of behavior, which those patterns of behavior could be self-improvement, you know, maybe developing yourself in your faith, you know, in your deen, and developing yourself financially so you can support a wife. Because once you do those two, you're completing, or first part, the self-improvement, you're completing your 50% of your deen. And then once you have the financial aspect done and you get married, now you've completed the other 50% of your deen. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's very simple. It's just a matter of like asking these questions and like going deeper down into your psychology and figuring out how you're working and how's everything going on here.
It's so amazing, refreshing to see someone who went through the journey like you have, and now where you're at today, you know, giving this advice, you know, with the Islamic touch in it. It's just so beautiful to see. So what was that? Because it's no secret now, at the end, you ended up coming to Islam, that complete and total submission to the one and only creator of the heavens and the earth, the one that Jesus worshiped, the one that Noah worshiped, Abraham, that pure monotheism, accepting the last and final messenger sent to mankind. A simple message: worship one and only one God, not his creation, and be morally upright. That's Islam. You're living Islam. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. What was it at the end that had you finally, because you left it till the end. So what was it at the end when you went through all of the different things that are out there that had you accept Islam?
So the thing that had me accept it 100% and stop putting it off was the fact that I was at my lowest point. You know, I had just gotten surgery. The whole COVID thing was going on, so I wasn't really, you know, spending time with other people. I was by myself. I was in pain. I couldn't work out. I couldn't move, and I'm a pretty physical individual. I just like playing sports. I like working out. I like training martial arts. I like doing all these things, always keeping in motion. That's how, like, mentally I would keep sane. And once I had that stripped away from me, and then I had no social interactions, and you know, I kind of knew intuitively that I didn't want to play video games and I didn't want to like watch TV shows and movies and all that stuff because I knew I would just kind of use that as an escape. So once I was there, just kind of sitting at my lowest point, depressed, I was like, yeah, I got to do something. And then the only thing that came to my mind was like, okay, last time I was in this position, I did dopamine detox and I started to come to the answers, you know. And I even spoke about this where the first time I did dopamine detox, I started to feel the pull towards Islam, but I didn't, you know, answer that. I didn't go to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I was scared of knowing the truth 100%. And this time, like all I was thinking about was just feeling better. I didn't want to feel depressed. I just wanted to feel better. So I started doing the dopamine detox, and then I started feel that same pull to Islam. And for like 3 days, maybe 3 days, I'd say, I kept putting it off. I was like, you know what? No, like I'm doing this dopamine detox. I don't want to read. I don't want to do anything. I'm just gonna sit and meditate and reflect and heal from whatever it is that I got to heal from. And then by the third day, I was like, you know what? Let me just read. Let me just read the Quran because I have it. It's just reading. It's holy text, so it's not like it's destroying this whole dopamine detox process. And that's when I started reading it. And once I started reading it, bro, the rest is history.
So would you what advice would you give? Would you say read the Quran? You've read every other book, Joe Rogan, whoever else is out there. Just read the Quran, a good English translation or Spanish or whatever background you come from. Read the Quran. Start with that.
I want to say read the Quran, but it's like with every person, like it's subject to individuality. So it's
exactly, yeah.
Bro. So like someone reading the Quran might be 100% it for them, and then for another person, it might be that self-reflection that they need. For another person, it might just be breaking out of their shell, like being more social, talking to people more, so they can kind of open their mind. Because what ends up happening is we close ourselves off, and when we are closed off, we close ourselves off to guidance, right? And like for whatever reason we close ourselves off, we need to figure out what that reason is and start to kind of open up from there. But I'd still say reading the Quran is a big piece of the puzzle here for sure.
Mm-hmm. At what point did you ask? It just seems like something so simple. A lot of people, they just don't do the simple, right? They do the complicated and the convoluted. Just asking the creator, the one who created creation, guide me. Like, you created me, guide me. Like, did you end up doing that at one point? Asking God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, not Jesus, not Muhammad, but just not the sun, not the moon, none of these things not the crystals, not the jinn, not the spirits, but just the one who created everything.
Yeah, so it's crazy that you even bring that up. But when I was Christian and I was with my ex-fiance, I remember because I still had that new age mentality. So I was always constantly like researching, constantly looking things up and trying to like piece the pieces in my head. And I would always come to these crazy conclusions. And I'd share that with everyone because I thought it was so crazy. And some people loved it. Some people were like, bro, that's just too much. But I remember talking to my ex-fiance's mom at the time. And I was like telling her all this stuff. And I was so passionate about it because I was like making these connections in my head. And she shared this thing with me saying that like, it was talking about God. And obviously in the context, they were probably, referring to Jesus. But what was said in this little piece was basically saying like, man is always trying to understand further. Like we're always trying to basically like, how do I say, the mind is always trying to come up with this complex answer when it's like you don't need to do that. It's very simple. You come to me, and the thing was like, you come to me, you come into my presence, and you will be at peace. And like when I read that, I was like, wow, like this is too simple. This is too simple for me. And then like it never left, I'll be honest. It never left. And I kind of started to simplify things over time. And like the more I simplified it, the more I kept asking like, oh, well, this seems too complicated. Like, how can this be more simple? How can like what's the most simple way here? And I kept asking the question, what's the most simple way here? And here I am, bro, in Islam.
Alhamdulillah. So that's amazing because Shaitan makes it complicated, right? And seems like, oh, there's so many religions. They're all teaching good. They're all, way like spokes on the wheel. But when you look into the different religions, in all respect, to the people, not trying to disparage on any, but you can see it one form or another, like you were talking about the way of life that the woman you're going to marry, you just saw contradiction after contradiction. It didn't make sense. Too much left to interpretation. You wanted something straightforward, clear, simple. And in one way or another, these man-made religions are calling you to worship the creation, confusion. But when you come to Islam, it's straightforward. It's clear. It's like I compare it like from darkness to light. Yeah, and you're a living testimony to that. So with the people out there who have all these prejudices, stereotypes, media manipulation has gotten to them, what do you say to people like that? But they have that deep void, right? And they're stumbling in the dark. What do you like to tell someone like that?
I say look for the truth. Look for the answers. Like if you sincerely want to know the answers, if you sincerely want to be at peace, if you sincerely want to live the best life that you can live, look for the answers because they're there. And the more sincere you become in your search, the more you'll be guided, and eventually you'll find what you're looking for.
You see, now we got a few minutes left. For the Muslims out there, everyone develops differently with their spirituality. We understand. But now, alhamdulillah, you're getting grounded more and more into the deen. But then when you see people taking things for granted, have you seen some of that? Where now some of the basic stuff, hijab is not, Islam is a part of Islam. The beard is not, Islam is part of Islam. But then you just make that small example with the other things like prayer, the bigger things, and now simple things that can be making your life less complicated. But you see a lot of Muslims taking it for granted and not implementing salah, not implementing the deen, actually sometimes being an obstacle for people like you who come on and say, oh, you don't have to put the beard, you don't have to wear hijab, you don't have to do this, you don't have to give up this, that, and the other, right? Have you seen some of this? And what's your response to that and advice for those who are also struggling in that arena of confusion? And they're Muslim.
The first thing I'd ask is like, is that bringing you peace? Because if they're thinking that way, it's probably because where they're living, their environment, what they are subject to, where you have Muslims and they live in the West, and there's no women over here that are really covering up. If anything, they're trying to wear as little as possible over here in the West. So it's like you have that constantly being bombarded. And if the woman is, let's say that this Muslim woman, she's going on social media a lot. She's watching TV shows and all that. And then her friends are also non-Muslim. And then she's going out into society and she's seeing all these non-Muslim women. Do you not think that that's going to affect your psychology? Like we are a product of our environment. So if the Muslim is thinking this way, if she doesn't want to wear the hijab and she doesn't want to do these so-and-so things, like you got to ask yourself the real question, like, is this bringing you peace? And if not, then why? And from there, it's, I don't want to get too complex with it, but it's asking yourself a simple question. It's like, is this bringing me peace? Is this bringing me happiness? And why is it that I'm doing what I'm doing?
People can catch up with you and the other brothers, the three Muslims. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
And,
so
where else people can hook up with you to learn more
alhamdulillah,
about your story?
If you guys just want to hear my stuff and like the videos that I put out over like self-improvement, you can go to my personal channel, which is my name, but with an extra A. And then if you want to get into the real stuff, the the spirituality aspect, Islam, philosophy, all this beautiful stuff, that's where I have the Three Muslim channel. I'm a part of that with two other brothers, and we try to put up as much content as possible. Try to keep it real, try to keep it raw and unfiltered, because our main intention from the beginning was kind of just recording our conversations that we were having, so that way other people can be a part of that conversation. Yeah, you're not there physically with us, but you're a part of it. And I feel like that's something that we as humans, we're just kind of missing that. It's not very often that you meet other people who are on the same wave as you. So we made these videos with that intention, and we're trying to help. That's it.
And beautiful. Inshallah, this can be a benefit, because we're not just trying to tell stories. We're trying to change lives. So your story has a lot of good behind it, alhamdulillah. And hopefully people like Mr. Joe Rogan and others like him, and people who have these preconceived notions, just like you did, oh, Muslims are Arabs, or they're oppressive, and all this other nonsense, right? All the media manipulation that's happening in the world. People can see behind that. You just gave them a taste. And if they're sincere and they want to know the truth, inshallah, this can inspire people to look more further than they've been seeing.
Yeah.
And thank you very much, man. It was really nice talking with you.
Alhamdulillah, bro. And jazakallah for having me.
Ameen. We're gonna have to do it again. We just scratched the surface. I got a lot I'd like to talk to you more about. Inshallah, we can do that in the future.
Inshallah.
May Allah bless you. Jazakallah khair.
Oh, yeah, bro.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
And thank you guys for tuning in. Another amazing story with our brother Hangil. Go ahead and leave us in the comments below what you thought. Any things you'd like us to talk to him about in the future, maybe on a program we'll do with him, inshallah. I really enjoyed talking to the brother. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time here on the Dean Show. Until then, peace.